It's time to talk Buffs with CU voice Mark Johnson on the Jim Davis Show on the Team.
And joining us right now, the voice of the Colorado Buffaloes, Mark Johnson. Good morning, Mark. How are you?
Jim, good to be on with you.
Always great to talk with you, especially after a Buffs win. Go to Canvas Stadium for the first time since '96. The Rocky Mountain Showdown's played in Fort Collins. Buffs get the victory there. Shedeur Sanders has a huge game with the 4 touchdown passes. Travis Hunter just, once again, putting himself in position to maybe win a Heisman with a couple of touchdown catches, interception of Braden Fowler, Nicolosi, and just a really good get-right win after that loss at Nebraska.
Yeah, I thought so on many fronts. A little bit of a slow start. Of course, the Rams scored first. It was 3-0 in there in the first quarter, and then they kind of found themselves and ran the ball relatively well. I think we talked last week a little bit about, they don't have to be a great running team, but they have to have at least that threat out there. They rushed for 109 yards. Micah Welch came out. He got, 61 or 65 yards rushing in his first action. So that was good to see. Relatively well, I think, protecting the quarterback from an offensive standpoint. The defense continues to be solid. And so, yeah, you feel good about that one. And now get ready for Baylor coming up on Saturday at Folsom Field.
So when you look at what you saw from the running game, what were some things you feel like were maybe a little different this time out? I mean, let's be honest too. Let's be totally transparent about this. Colorado State's run defense going into that game was not very good. Yeah. So it was kind of the thing that's good for what ails you for the Buffs. But what are some of the things you saw in that game that you liked better in regard to their running game?
Well, I think there was at least a commitment to it to continue, going back to it on occasion. And you're right, that defensive front had its issues. I mean, we knew going in it was kind of a weakness on weakness there. Colorado's rushing attack with CSU's defensive front and their rush defense. So the Buffs took advantage of it. All right. Yeah, I'm not coming out of this. I was on a show the other day. I said, listen, I'm not coming out of this and claiming this is Gary Barnett's 2001 Buffs rushing the football. But it was a step in the right direction. And what do we want to see from a football team? You want to see continued improvement. Now they're going to get a better test, I think, on Saturday with Baylor in terms of running the football. But they have to continue to go back there. And so, like I said, the line protected. They opened up some holes. They shuffled it around a little bit, moved some guys around last week. So it was a different combination out there. Now, is that the answer? I don't know. I just know that it was a little bit better this week. And so we'll see what happens on Saturday when Baylor comes in.
Let's flip it over for the Buffs' run defense, which had a pretty good night against Colorado State, against a team that has, at times, ran the ball well.
Yeah, and I'm beginning to be a believer in that defensive front. I wasn't sure early. Now, is it the dominant front? I can't say that yet. But, with Okunwale and Nwankwo inside and the other pit transfer on the other side. I mean, you've got guys, I think, that are solid in there. And so that front continues to improve. What they've done with the linebacking core, I think they found their 2 guys with Levante Bentley and Nakai Hill-Green. I think those 2 have played very well from a linebacking standpoint. Both are physical players, hard-hitting guys that seem to make plays. And then the back end's been fantastic all year long. DJ McKinney, by the way, is becoming a star out there. Everyone wants to talk about Travis, and they should be. But you know how tough it is to be the corner opposite Travis Hunter? Because they're going to come at you, and that guy's proving, I think, he's an NFL corner out there. And so I like that defense. I think, and Robert Livingston, what he has done in terms of his call, his system, his game plans, how he's calling a game, that defense has been impressive this season. It's been there consistently all 3 games. And if that continues as we move on here, Coach Barnett always says you can't really tell what a team is till you get through 4 or 5 games. Then you know what they are. Well, through that small sample size, that defense has been solid all season long, and I think it is.
And you have to like what you've seen going back to the Buffs running game with the freshman Micah Welch. 65 yards. He averaged over 7 yards a carry, I believe 7.2 to be more precise.
Yep.
He just had the 9 carries, but that was effective production, efficient production from the young man.
Well, and I wonder why we hadn't seen him earlier. I mean, I know they listed Charlie Offerdahl as the number 1, and Dallin Hayden, the Ohio State transfer, was number 2. He was dinged up, so he didn't play, and so that brought in Augusta and Welch last week. Augusta put the ball on the ground, so they pulled him out, and they put Micah Welch in. I liked what I saw from him. When I was at spring ball and watched Micah Welch, and then the little bit of camp that I was at with my injury, I liked what I saw. He's got some wiggle to him. He's got a quickness to him. when he needs to. He's got some power to him. He's 205 pounds as a true freshman at about 5'9", and so I liked him, and I was kind of scratching my head why we weren't seeing him. Now, I'm assuming it boils down to, and normally, by the way, if you're a fan, you're wondering, why aren't we seeing this guy? Why aren't we seeing that guy? Normally, from running back perspective, what that tells you, it's not the fact they can't carry the football. It's that in a pass-heavy team, they're not very good at protections. And so that's normally why you don't see a guy. And fans would ask me, okay, wait a second. When I watch Charlie run, he's a nice runner. He's not a great runner. Why is he out there? Well, because he picks up protections. And when you've got a quarterback like Shedeur Sanders, the running back has to pick up protections. So I guarantee you what they're working on him, because he can carry the ball. He's proven that. What they're really hammering on him about right now is you have to be better in protections, helping our passing game. And so that's probably the reason why we didn't see him earlier.
Mark Johnson, voice of Buffalo's with us. There's no doubt in the Coach Prime era, Jay Norvell era, that there's bad blood between these two programs. I mean, it's always been a very intense rivalry, but bad blood's probably maybe even underselling that a little bit.
Yeah.
The thought about trying to score at the end of the game, trying to throw the ball at the end of the game with Shedeur in there, I guess I just want your takeaway on that, because I get it. Braden Fowler Nicolosi, he said a lot of things he probably shouldn't have said. Torrey Horton, you shouldn't write checks your body can't cash when you're not 100%, and some of those things. And Nicolosi, same deal. In terms of, he hasn't played particularly well this season. But just your thoughts about that, because man, I'd sure, if I'm a Colorado fan, I like getting the win against Colorado State. I love it. I want to dominate, but I don't want to get Shedeur hurt. And He took a big hit on that last drive when they were trying to score.
Yeah, that's something. In fact, we made a comment, I think, in the broadcast late in terms of that game, because it was salted away, and why he's out there. Because I'm with the mindset at that point, when you get midway through that fourth quarter, and this thing's over with, there's no way CSU is going to come back. I don't want to see number 2 or number 12 out there.
Yeah.
Maybe number 10 and number 5 either. I mean, just you've got some depth there, so bring other guys out. In terms of kind of the extracurricular stuff, I've always been a Walter Payton guy. And what I mean by that is Walter Payton had that great line. When he scored a touchdown, he said, "I always act like I've been there before and I plan on coming back, and I don't respond. I don't respond to things." And that's the way I live my life. I don't respond to things. In all truthfulness and I think fairness, the Nicolosi and Horton comments were last summer. Those clips were brought out last week by Channel 4 or whoever it was. And so those weren't comments they made last week. Those were comments from last summer. And I'm one of these guys that I don't react to that kind of stuff. I mean, Jim, you and I are connected on social media. There are people that take shots at me, and I don't respond. It's one of my favorite lines from Tombstone, right? When Johnny Ringo wanted to fight Wyatt Earp, and Wyatt Earp said, "I'm not going to fight. There's no money in it." And so I don't respond to things like that. I don't like to see people respond to them. I don't like being part of that kind of stuff, and so that's just the way I do my thing. Now, I'm not a young person. I'm not a 21-year-old person, and they've got a very different view and different time of life and all that kind of things. And so maybe when I was young I probably would have, but I kind of stay out of that kind of stuff. And so I would have liked to have seen more of a just kind of salt that game away. That way nobody gets hurt. But boy, you're right. There's been some bad blood there.
No doubt about it. It's going to be obviously a while before those two will score off again in the Rocky Mountain Showdown. So now it's Baylor to open up Big 12 play, the return to Big 12 football for Colorado. And it's a Baylor team. You've got a couple different quarterbacks that have already played. The Toledo transfer, Daquan Finn, won the starting job. He missed the Air Force game. He got a rib injury playing against Utah. Sawyer Robertson played against Air Force. He had a pretty good game, 18-24 for 248 yards. Didn't throw a touchdown. He did have a rushing touchdown in that game. So for Robert Livingston, the Buffs defensive coordinator, got to prepare for potentially two quarterbacks in this game on Saturday.
Yeah, you do. And my assumption is Robertson's probably going to start. I mean, I know that when their head coach had his press conference on Monday, he said that Finn had practiced, but they'll wait and see. Robertson, I think, has played better. It was I was talking to John Morris, my buddy that does the Baylor games, the other day, and he said it was a heck of a competition throughout fall camp. Finn ends up getting the win, and then really laid an egg against Utah. And so Robertson has really played well since then. Did against Air Force last week, as you mentioned. And so my guess is Robertson. But, yeah, you're going to have to prepare for both of them. And they're a little bit different. I mean, they're running the same system, but they're a little bit different in terms of how they play the game. And so that's going to be a challenge this week. And Baylor's going to come in here with, a very good group of athletes. And it is a Big 12 game. And so you've got all those other things that are going to be on the line in regards to this ball game. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great test for Colorado.
And they got some good running backs. Bryson Washington started the season out 105 yards and a touchdown, but Dawson Pendergrass has 144. He has 144 to lead them in rushing, but he only had 4 carries for 13 yards against Air Force. Interesting thing in that game, very seldom does a team have more rushing yards than Air Force, but that was the case for Baylor in that win last week against the Air Force Falcons.
Yeah, now go back to what we just talked about here 2-3 questions ago about that defensive front being tested again this weekend. That is going to happen. And really, they've used, if you go back and look at their stats, they've used really kind of 4 different guys back there running the football over the course of the 3 games that they've had. There's all 4 of them have got close to the same amount of carries, close to the same amount of yards. No one guy has kind of established himself, and so you got to get ready to kind of face different guys, and they run differently, and the way they approach things, and so they're going to run the football, and that's why I think this is going to be a good test for that defensive front once again, and those linebackers this weekend against Baylor, and that's what I love about college football is every week you're getting a different test of sorts. You think about what Baylor's had to do. They've got ready for. Really, Utah runs the football, and so I think their coach was talking about how we face run team. Now we're going to face a pass-heavy team, and so some of the aspects of this, especially early season, when teams don't see a certain kind of team, and all of a sudden now it changes week by week, and so there's going to be some interesting chess matches, I think, going on in this football game for both teams. And
I think it's an interesting situation for Colorado because you look at the North Dakota State game. North Dakota State, it's a money game. They go to Folsom. If they can get a win against an FBS team and basically go in there and beat them and take the lunch money too, that would have been. So there was a target on the Buffs back in that opening game with North Dakota State. Then you go to Nebraska with that rivalry game, Colorado State, Baylor, Colorado. This rivalry, if you will, is it's been dormant for quite some time because of the Buffs' departure to the Pac-12. So this is probably the first game this year, Mark. We're not the Baylor's not motivated. They're obviously highly motivated, but not with the same level of intensity as maybe the first 3 games of the season in who Colorado faces.
Well, it's the first neutral game, right?
Yeah,
that's what I call it, first neutral game because of all that was on the line. Yeah, you got exactly, and you laid out perfectly the NDSU game and then 2 rivalry games. This is the first game, and if you've seen their head coach, by the way, and the way he conducts himself and the way he talks, that dude is never going to give any bulletin board material at all. I mean, he is the most reserved, quiet, just kind of neutral kind of guy you're ever going to see. So there's no fire that's going to be lit in this ball game where it becomes, as Prime likes to say, personal in this contest. So, yeah, very neutral game, just a conference game. The only really kind of excitement it's homecoming and it's the first, Big 12 game since a return back, and those aren't enormously emotional aspects, but they're storylines within a ball game. And so there's nothing that makes this one, if you will, stand out or become personal in any way, shape, or form. Their coach is fan. Have you seen him? Have you watched him?
Yeah, Dave Aranda. Talk about 2 polar opposite human beings.
Yes.
In Coach Prime and Dave Aranda. I mean, Dave Aranda, you could hit him with a baseball bat and he'd go, "Ow, that hurt. I wish you wouldn't do that."
He kind of on a scale of 1 to 10. His presentation is between a 2 and a 3 all the time.
He is flat affect, kind of just very, very. Yeah, there's no peaks or valleys there. It's just a straight line.
Go back and watch him for your listeners. Just Google Baylor football weekly press conference and watch him. He's got a little Clint Eastwood in him if you watch him. He's got the eyebrows, where he kind of raises that one. His delivery, he kind of gets in here, and Baylor's going to play very good football against Colorado. I mean, it's you're wondering, punk. I mean, he's kind of got that to him. If you watch him, he's got a little Clint Eastwood in him.
Yeah.
I was kind of I was laughing while I was cutting some of the audio. I was kind of giggling because I'm like, dude, this guy's got some Clint Eastwood. He's as steady as they come, and so he and Prime are totally opposite. I mean, 180 degrees from each other, and that'll be part of the fun, I guess, this weekend.
Mark, a football team needs to know its limitations. He's very there. He is very, like you said, just there's no high, no low there. It's just
I was
one.
laughing the whole time. Yeah,
It's fantastic. 6 o'clock kickoff for homecoming. Mark will have the call with Coach Gary Barnett over on 1100 KNZZ 92.7 FM coming up Saturday. Mark, always a treat. Thank you so much, my friend.
All right, guys. Talk to you next week.
Take care. Mark Johnson, voice of the Buffaloes. Yeah, there is a little Dave Aranda with a. All right, well.